Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, sir.
How's it going today? Looks like we got a couple minutes here before we start. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. Morning, Dr. Hill.
Good morning, Kobe. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Commissioner Rojas, is it possible to get your camera running?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. There we go. I want to see that big comfy chair.
It's in the other room. I might bring it over here. I got several.
Don't want you to get too comfortable, huh? Take a nap.
No, don't do that.
All right. Let's see, Commissioner Baker and looking for Commissioner Beasley yet. There's Baker. Got another minute here before we start. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I know Commissioner Sadowski will be out today. See, I think Commissioner Beasley should be joining us and should be here, I'm imagining, sometime soon. So let's go ahead and get started with our announcements and that. So welcome everybody to the April 19th, 2022 City Planning Commission meeting. It's nice to see everybody here post Easter Day. As you know, we're still holding our meetings virtual and we'll be doing so for the foreseeable future. And please keep in mind that the city commissioners, planning commissioners understand every project is important and unique. In addition, we want to make sure we address all of our projects individually with the attention that they need to build consensus between the applicant, the public, and city staff. We do have time limits in place for the cases that we hear, which is 5 minutes for staff presentations, 20 minutes for applicant presentations. And then once we move, and then any questions by the commissioners too with the applicant. Then once we move to our public comment stage, please limit comments to 2 minutes when speaking as an individual, or up to 5 minutes when speaking on behalf of a community association or a larger group. But the goal here is really to be brief yet heard. As you know, the city is updating a comprehensive plan titled KC Spirit Playbook. There's lots of information. You're going to see a lot of draft reports out there, so please check it out. You can find it online at KC Spirit Book. Didn't have it written down. Joe, can you help me with by chance with the website for the Spirit Playbook? I need to get that back on my notes here.
Yeah, I'll get that for you, and
Yes.
I want to make sure I get it right, and I'll give it to you in a minute.
Yeah, if you can post that in the chat, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Sorry about that, everybody. So as we get started, I asked staff to briefly provide some ground rules and instructions for us to all ensure that we have a great meeting with minimal disruption and maximum clarity. So Joe, can you remind us of those rules, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. There's two basic rules here. First is understanding how you are participating in this meeting. So there's two types of participants. There's attendees and panelists. Panelists are everyone you see on the screen right now. So they consist of currently planning commissioners and staff only. Panelists have the ability to share their video and audio. They can control that themselves. Attendees do not. We divide it up this way because it helps maintain the flow of the meeting and minimize disruption. If you are interested in a case, if you're the applicant, we ask that you raise your hand using the Zoom raised hand feature, which is at the bottom center of your screen, as soon as the case is called. That way we know you're the applicant, and we'll go ahead and ask that we'll ask you to accept the promotion to a panelist position. You do have to accept that. Once you do, it will appear as though you are
Yeah, right.
It'll appear briefly as though you
City Plan Commission just started.
It'll appear briefly as though you are being kicked out of the meeting, but you're not. Don't worry, you'll rejoin us as a panelist. If you are a citizen interested in testifying on the case, also go ahead and raise your hand once the planner starts presenting the case, and that way we'll know to promote you for the public hearing when it's called by the chair. Once you're a panelist, we ask that you remain muted until the chair calls on you, whether you're the applicant or the member of the public wanting to testify. The chat feature that is available in Zoom is only for asking questions about the placement of the case on the agenda or where we're at on the agenda, or for technical questions. It's not to be used for providing testimony on any case or talking about the merits of any case. And I believe that covers everything, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joe. With that, let's go ahead and start our meeting with the consent agenda items, those cases that will be continued to a future meeting.
Okay. On consent, we have a few cases to be continued, starting with item C3, case number final plat 2021-00058. A request to approve a final plat in District SC, creating 69 single-family lots and 1 tract on 35 acres at 76th Street between Flintlock and Northeast Shoal Creek Parkway. Staff recommend, or the applicant's requesting continuance to May 3rd. Docket item C 4.1, which is case number CPC 2022-00002. Request to approve a project plan for Providence Point second plat located at Northeast 111th Street and Northeastern Avenue. And companion case docket item C 4.2, case number final plat 2021, a final plat for the same development at the same location. In both cases, the applicant is requesting continuance to May 3rd, and staff recommends no fee on that case as well. And that is all the continuances we have on consent, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission on continuance of docket items C3, C4.1, or C4.2? Okay, seeing none.
So
Go ahead.
C4.1 and C4.2 are without fee, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, let's go ahead and open it up for any public testimony. If there's anybody out there that would like to speak regarding continuance of docket items C3, C4.1, or C4.2, please raise your hand and you will be called upon.
Mr. Chair, no one's raising their hand.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public testimony, and I'll take a motion from one of the commissioners, please.
I move to continue docket item C3 as stated on the docket, and C4.1 and C4.2 to May 3rd without fee.
Second.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second for continuance of those cases. Lisa, can you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye. Aye.
Lisa, we've kind of lost your.
Yeah, I think we lost Lisa.
I beg your pardon?
Yeah, we didn't hear you there.
Okay, Commissioner Baker?
Aye.
Okay, I can hear you. Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Rojas.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like the motion passes for continuance of docket items C3, C4.1, and C4.2. Joe, on the rest of the cases, I need to recuse from C8. So maybe we can take that as a separate motion, please.
So I'll go ahead then and call the remainder except C8. C1 is case number final plat 2021-00003. This is a request for a final plat for the Edison at Tiffany Springs, creating 1 multifamily lot at the southwest corner of Northwest Old Tiffany Springs and Avion Drive. Staff is recommending approval with conditions. Docket item C2, case number final plat 2019-00018. This is a request to approve a final plat for Prospect Summit Homes located at the southeast corner of 22nd and Olive. Staff recommends approval with conditions. Docket item C5, case number final plat 2022-00006. This is a request to approve a final plat for Holly Farms third plat, which is located at the southern terminus of North Holly Street, about 125 feet south of Northwest 106th Street. Staff recommends approval with conditions. Docket item C6, case number final plat 2022-00014. This is a request to approve a final plat for Quail Valley second plat, which is located at the intersection of Northeast 104th Terrace and North McKinley Avenue. Staff recommends approval with conditions. And docket item C7 is case number final plat 2022-00018. This is a request to approve an interjurisdictional final plat located at 74th and North Broadway for Brandon Estates to create 2 residential lots, and staff recommends approval of that with conditions as well.
Okay. So are any questions from the commission regarding docket items C1, C2, C5, C6, or C7? Okay. So we'll go ahead and open it up for any public testimonies. If there's anybody out there from the public that would like to speak regarding docket items C1, C2, C5, C6, or C7, please raise your hand and you'll be called upon.
Mr. Chair, no one's raising their hand.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go ahead and close then all public testimony on those cases. If there's nothing to discuss, I'll take a motion from the commission, please.
I'll move to approve docket item C1, C2, C5, C6, C7 as stated in the docket.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second for approval of docket items C1, C2, C5, C6, and C7 as stated in the staff reports. Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker.
Aye.
Crow,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Rojas.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like the motion passes in 6-0 for approval of those docket items. Commissioner Hill, can you have the honors for docket item C8, please? And I'll
Sure,
repeat.
Joe. Do you need to read C8 or can we just?
He hasn't opened it up yet. Yeah.
Docket item C8 is case number CPC 2022-00042. This is a request to approve a final plan in District MPD for the Redwood at North Ambassador, which is located south of Northwest Tiffany Springs Parkway, bounded on the west by or east by North Ambassador and on the west by Skyview Avenue. The staff is recommending approval with conditions of this one.
Are there any questions from the commissioners on docket item C8?
Yes, Commissioner Hill, I've got one. I just wanted to ask staff whether there seems to be big detention ponds in that plan for stormwater control. I just was wondering, do you know whether the applicant looked at green infrastructure at all on any of those areas?
I believe Adam Degonia and potentially other applicants of the Redwood project are online if they would like to join as a panelist and discuss that with you.
Great, thank you.
Joe, can you identify the applicants
Yes,
and make
ma'am.
them a panelist so that they can answer Commissioner Allender's question?
Yes, I'm promoting them right now.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, Adam. Can you state your name and your address for us?
Yes, I'm Adam Degonia, 406 East 30th Avenue, North Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay. Can you answer Commissioner Allender's question about green infrastructure and detention ponds on this
Yes.
project?
We currently have 2 detention ponds proposed on this site, one larger one kind of centrally located that will be a wet basin. And then we also have another pond in the northwest corner of the site that will be a dry basin, and that will kind of act in terms of the detention requirements and also for BMP requirements.
Did you actually have a look at any other green infrastructure designs at all to control the stormwater?
We're following the MARC BMP manual for that and those requirements. I believe we're also maybe adding some native vegetation to the site as well.
Yeah, I understand you can put detention ponds in as a part of the policy, but I was just wondering whether you looked at a green infrastructure design as a feature. That's all.
All right. Thank you.
I assume no.
Commissioner Allender, this is Paul Osborne, also with McClure, 1700 Swift Street, North Kansas City, Missouri. We, as on previous projects where this came up, we will look at additional measures we can take to fulfill some of those green infrastructure requests of the city. On previous projects, we've added additional plantings, and on this one, we may have the option to add in some infiltration type treatment measures.
Yeah, that'd be good if you could have a look at that. I know you've complied with the manual, but
Right.
if you could actually have a look at infiltration basins and so forth, and see whether you can make some of those more of a feature versus just a detention pond, that would be appreciated.
Sure. And as you've heard this client explain or tell you guys, they intend to put in many of these projects. And so we want to make sure we start off on the right foot with this one, and we'll look at that further.
Yeah, I don't know, Joe, whether we can have I know it hasn't got a lot of teeth, but can we actually put some sort of condition in there that they would look at infiltration ponds and so forth in lieu of detention basins?
Yeah, you can. I would recommend that we do it on preliminary plans because it does affect it could affect the layout of the development. And this is a final plan. Having said that, it's not necessarily impossible to do it with the final plan. I just think it would be better for the developer to understand up front that that's an expectation. And I think you'd want to require it because simply encouraging people to look at it, all they have to tell staff is that we tried or we looked at it, and there's not really anything we can do to force them to do it.
Okay, so can I request staff when these first come in for review, that green infrastructure, stormwater green infrastructure is actually questioned to the developer so we can catch it early versus waiting till final plans to approve?
Yeah, we do make that comment, and you'll hear from Water Services later. I think it's important for it to come from someone who's knowledgeable of that, more knowledgeable than me and my staff. And so that would be something that I think we'd want to ask them to help weigh in on at that point in the process.
Okay, that's fine. We'll let this one go. But I just want to basically make sure that we're really having a hard look at green infrastructure on developments versus just keeping on putting detention ponds into the developments. So that's fine. No problem. Let's go ahead with it as it is.
Thank you, Commissioner Allender. I appreciate you elevating that up. Are there any other questions from the commissioners? Okay.
I'll add just for context, because the applicant probably hasn't, seen this come up on the other projects that we've discussed. But what's been nice is that often just the encouragement of looking at it, the applicant has come back and said, you know what, it's a little bit more of an investment, but it was worthwhile. And so we did it. And it's nice that through Commissioner Allender's encouragement and with, having recommendations that don't have teeth, it's been something that a lot of people have deemed, or I guess a few have deemed worthwhile. So just for some context.
Thank you. Thanks, Commissioner.
Thanks, Commissioner Anders. Any other questions, comments? All right, Joe, we can open it up for public testimony. Is there anyone, if you want to give testimony on this docket item 8C8, please raise your hand so that you can be promoted.
Madam Chair, no one's raising their hand.
Okay, we'll close public testimony. If there are no further comments, we can take a motion on docket item C8.
I move to approve docket item C8 with conditions.
Is there a second?
Second,
All right, it's been moved in second. Lisa, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Allender,
We can't hear you, Lisa, in case you're talking.
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Enders,
aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Rojas.
Aye.
All right, it is, the motion has been unanimously approved. Good luck on your project, and we really hope you take the recommendations of Commissioner Allender to look into some other green infrastructure to support the detention water. Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hill. Let's go ahead, Joe, then. Now let's move to our regular docket items, beginning with those that are proposed to be continued to a future date.
First continuance is docket item 3, case number CPC 2022-00221. This is a request to approve a rezoning to district MPD and a preliminary development plan, which also acts as a preliminary plat for the Redwood development on North Brighton to allow construction of 313 residential units located between 60th Terrace on the north and 57th Street to the south on the west side of Brighton Avenue. Applicant is requesting continuance. Staff recommends with fee to May 17th. Docket item 4, case number CPC 2022-00009. This is a request to approve a rezoning from District R 7.5 to District MPD and approval of a preliminary plan, which also acts as a preliminary plat, to allow for construction of 34 multiplex units at the southeast corner of 115th and Holmes Road. Applicant requests continuance of this case, and staff recommends without fee to June 7th. Docket item 6, case number CPC 2021-00168. A request to approve a rezoning from District R80 to District MPD with a preliminary development plan for a landscaping business to bring it into compliance with the zoning ordinance located at 8300 North Green Hills Road. Applicant requests continuance and staff recommends without fee to June 7th. Docket item 8.1, case number CPC 2021-00232, Pacific and Truce, which is located at 1015 Pacific Street. This is a request to approve a development plan to allow for the development of townhomes and duplexes at this location. Staff recommends continuance, or the applicant requests continuance, and staff recommends without fee to May 17th. And companion case docket item 8.2, case number CPC 2022-00006 for the same development as an area plan amendment to the Greater Downtown Area Plan to change the land use recommendation from residential high and mixed use from residential low to residential high and mixed use neighborhood at the same location. The applicant is requesting continuance of this one, and staff recommends without fee to May 17th. And that concludes our continuances.
Okay, just a couple of questions, Joe. So docket item 3, you're saying a recommendation with fee. So that's different than the agenda.
Yes.
Okay. And then as far as docket item 8.1 and 8.2, just making sure, I guess we got 5 that are anticipated to be there. Those that are available, hopefully you'll be able to make the May 17th meeting. Okay. Any questions from the commission to city staff regarding the continuance of these docket items? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and open it up for any public testimony. If there's anybody out there that would like to discuss the continuance of docket items 3, 4, 6, 8.1, or 8.2, please raise your hand and you'll be called upon.
Mr. Chair, no one's raising their hand.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public testimony then, and I'll take a motion from the commission, please.
And only 4 people can vote on 8.1 and 8.2. So that has to be a separate.
Okay. All right, so let's do 3, 4, and 6 as one motion.
I move to continue docket item 3 to May 17th with fee. Docket item 4 to June 7th without fee, and docket item 6 to June 7th without fee.
Second.
Okay, so I've got a motion for continuance of docket items 3, 4, and 6 with the addition of 3 to have be with fee versus without. Lisa, can you take roll call, please, on that motion?
Mhm. Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker.
Aye.
Crowe,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Rojas.
Aye.
Okay, so it looks like the motion passes for the continuance of those 3 cases. So let's move then to 8.1 and 8.2. We've got a quorum of Baker, Beasley, Crowell, Enders, and Rojas. So if one of you can make a motion for continuance of docket item 8.1 or 2, that would be great.
I move to continue docket item 8.1, 8.2 to May 17th without fee.
Second.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second to continue docket items 8.1 and 8.2 to May 17th. Lisa, can you take a roll call from those 4, please?
Mhm. Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Crowe,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
and Rojas.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like the motion passes to continue 8.1 and 8.2 to May 17th. All right, so with that, let's go back and hear docket item, let's see, what are we on? Number 1, please.
All right, docket item 1 is 2 companion cases consisting of 1.1, case number CPC 2022-00018. This is a request to approve a preliminary plat in districts R2.5 and B1-1 to allow for 53-unit residential development consisting of 7 multi-unit houses on 4 acres at the northwest corner of 39th and Jackson Avenue. And docket item 1.2, case number final plat 2022-00010. A request to approve a final plat for the same. The planner on this case is Olafug Baji.
Thanks, Joe. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Plan Commission. Joe, if you don't mind promoting Patrick Joyce, who's the applicant for this case.
Hey, welcome back, by the way, and congratulations to the win to your family.
Thanks, thank you, Mr. Chair. You saw what my co-workers did in my absence, so
Yes.
they took it upon themselves to make my office look good. So, yeah, this next companion case is a request for preliminary and final plat. If you recall, this is a Bodai development that's located kind of in the middle of the city where my arrow is pointing, just within the center, close to Seven Oaks Park. So this is Seven Oaks, it's just on the north. The actual area is surrounded by 38th Street, unimproved, or just a paper street on the north, 39th Street on the south, Jackson on the east, and unimproved Norton Avenue on the west. So this came through City Plan Commission as a development plan back in October of 2019, and we had the discussion about the vacation of Norton. Since then, that's occurred. We also had the additional discussion about stream buffer. That development plan that was approved in October by City Plan Commission did not include a preliminary plat. So what's coming before you today is just the preliminary and final plat to just plat the parcel. So simply, its total is 4 acres, and the zoning is B1-1 and R2.5, and they're trying to just create 2 lots and 1 tract. So 1 lot will be the residential development, and the second lot will be the commercial development. And the tract, they are trying to see if they can get some payment of money in lieu of parkland dedication via that tract. So they are still working with Parks and Rec to get those satisfied. This has been on hold due to the resolution of the stream buffer issue. And since then, we've been able to get beyond that, and overall development plan can move forward now. Again, this is the preliminary plat. So lot 1 is shown with the 7 buildings on the northern part, and lot 2 is to the south, which would be the commercial component down on 39th Street in the future. And the tract, as you can see, is along Jackson and then bisects the site. This plat proposes to improve East 38th Street along the northern side. Since the vacation of Norton has occurred, there's no need for that. So those were the moving parts that we've been handling as this case has been moving forward. With that, staff's recommendation is for approval subject to the other conditions attached. And I think there's the same conditions. So that ends my report, and I'll take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commissioners to city staff? Olufu, can you maybe stop sharing the screen, please?
Is that good?
No.
Got it.
There you go. All right, perfect. I'm sorry, I didn't see. Did anybody have any questions from to city staff? Okay, so let's go ahead and open it up to the applicant then. Applicant, welcome. If you don't mind stating your name and address for the record, we sure appreciate it.
Yes, it's Patrick Joyce, 941 West 141st Terrace, Kansas City, Missouri. I don't have a whole lot to add to what Olufu said. I think he did a pretty good job of explaining it. Also, this body has seen this project before. So if there's any specific questions, I can stand for those. I would say that with respect to the parkland dedication, we have decided to move forward with the payment of the fee in lieu of the dedication. So we do plan to do that. And other than that, we do agree with the conditions imposed. So.
Okay, great. Any questions from the commission to the applicant?
So does that change the plat if there's no parkland dedication?
We removed the tract.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Can you send me an updated one then? Because
yes,
we'll just go to 2 lots versus 2 lots and a tract.
That's correct. Yeah, I'll send you one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, does that need to be updated then in your conditions, Olufu?
No,
Okay.
I just have to make sure that my legal description for the final plat shows that it's just 2 lots and no tract. So, and then we'll remove any languages on the final plat by then. So,
Okay. All right. If there's no questions then, let's go ahead and open it up for any public testimony. If there's anybody out there from the public that would like to speak regarding docket items 1.1 or 1.2, please raise your hand and you will be called upon.
Mr. Chair, no one's raising their hand.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public testimony then. Anything else, Mr. Joyce, before we talk amongst the commission?
No, I have nothing else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, we'll close all testimony and speak amongst the commission. If nothing to state, then I'll take a motion, please.
Move to approve document item 1.1 and 1.2 with conditions.
Second.
Okay, so I've got a motion for approval of docket items 1.1 and 1.2. Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Corral,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Rojas.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like the motion passes then 6-0. We appreciate you bringing it in and good luck as you move forward.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Joe, let's go ahead and go to docket item number 2, please.
All right, docket item number 2 is case CPC 2022-00043. Request to approve a rezoning from District MPD to District N1-5 and US, which stands for underground space, on 36 acres located at the northeast corner of 435 and Wilson Road. Olufus Agbaji is the staff planner.
Thank you, Joe. If you can please promote Steve Warger, who's the applicant for this case. Mr. Chair, this next case is located in the, let me just go, at the northeast corner of Wilson Avenue and 435, just where at this location, just south of the river. Specifically, it's overall about 40 acres. And as you can see, it's within the cities of Independence and Kansas City. The request today is to rezone this from MPD to M1-5 and US underground storage. His original request was for M3-5, but staff's recommendation is for M1-5 because that's consistent with the underlying or future land use recommendation. Again, as you can see, the site has frontage on 435, but access to the site is from Wilson Avenue on the south, which is partially within the city of Independence and city of Kansas City. The only thing, this is the Kansas City International Academy to the south. There are existing single-family residences within the city of Independence to the east, railroad track to the north, and then again 435 to the west. The history on this site was back in 2012. It was rezoned to MPD to allow for the Mocan Teamster Union to use as their training facility for their heavy equipment. And since 2012, this plan was never activated, so it's never been vested. And the applicant would like to use this today as is. When this rezoning was done back in 2012 to MPD, the underlying zoning was M3-5, but staff's recommendation for this rezoning is to M1-5/US because that's what the future land use recommendation is, which is light manufacturing. So the main reason for this is just to rezone it back to a manufacturing zoning since the planned MPD did not occur. Again, this was the approved MPD and all it was just pad site, small offices, and then just heavy equipment practice area for the Teamster Union. And that did not take effect. So with that, staff's recommendation for this request to rezone is for approval without condition. That ends my presentation and I'll take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission regarding docket item number 2?
Olufu, could you just give a general description of light manufacturing? I guess I'm just concerned given residential. I know it's the future land use, but just kind of give an idea of what potentially could go in there.
I can go, let me just grab what light manufacturing says. Light manufacturing does correspond with M1, but I'll go in and just give you, and I'll share it on mine. Can you see the screen?
Coming, I believe. There we go.
So uses allowed. And the M1 does include residential, civic, but it's not as intense as other uses. I'm trying to find the description. So the light manufacturing district has it's our first base industrial zoning district. So it does not, it's not as intense as the M2 and M3.
So would that just
So
be
the
like,
specific use list, as you can see, has it has more allowed uses, but then as you go higher, it includes single family homes, but that's allowed via special use permit. Single purpose residential building is permitted, and then group living is also permitted via special use permit in this area. So those existing homes, even though they're not zone manufacturing, are zone R2.5, but they've been adjacent to this parcel since prior to the rezoning to MPD.
so I guess in your estimation, what would be the heaviest use that is permitted on M1? Is it just kind of like a warehouse?
Heaviest
or
use, most of the heaviest use in M1, which would be waste related uses, require special use permit.
okay.
And recycling general requires a special use permit. Mining and quarrying, any of the heavy uses requires a special use permit. When we get to manufacturing, the artisan and limited manufacturing is permitted, but when intensive manufacturing is prohibited, as you can see in this area. So the intensive manufacturing is prohibited. Mining and quarrying is subject to a special use permit.
Okay, so just generally, it's a pretty wide ranging zoning category, and then if there was a more, feels like most of these things would need some sort of special use permit. So I feel comfortable with that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's the first base of our industrial zoning. So anything that's a little intense requires special use permit. So it's the lighter part, kind of corresponds with the B4.
Okay.
And then, but anything over there, we kind of push to a special use permit or
Sounds
prohibited good. Completely. Let me stop sharing that.
Okay, any other questions from the commission to city staff? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and welcome the applicant then.
Good morning, Steve
Good morning.
Warger, 6127 Northwest Pine Ridge Circle, Parkville, Missouri, representing the ownership group with Subterra LLC. As Olafu had stated, we're just trying to get the MPD that has basically not been taken into effect or vested off of this. We are working towards plans towards our uses. Basically, none of them would be heavy industrial. It would be more office warehousing, some storage potential facilities, up top as far as storage. We also have the cave, which is the underground space where there may be some warehousing and storage in there also. We don't intend nothing's come forward yet as far as like an industrial type use anyway. We are cognizant of the residential area around it. There's a lot of nice vegetation. Plan on using that as natural screening that's there at this present time. Part of the ownership when this was purchased does actually own a lot of the single family lots along 435 on the west side. Not that we're going to develop anything in there, but we do own part of that. So we are maintaining that. And we will keep that as a buffer at this time until some plan would come forward. And with that, we just ask for your recommendation.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. In this particular area, there's a lot of activity by Port KC. They're looking to put some kind of intermodal facility. They're in the preliminary stages. Have you had any discussion with them about this because it's kind of close to that area?
Yes, we were notified of that yesterday, and I touched base with Frank Weatherford at Trans Systems. Early this morning, he responded back. Their plan, which was shared with me, is the best alternate. They think it's more still in a conceptual stage. There's been no funding for any of that, but I'm in contact with Frank and their project manager, and we will work together as we go forward with our plan on top to see what we can do to make everything work for both of us.
Okay, is that like an access road or a layout or something that they had?
Yeah, it was a road layout that went through part of the property, and we just have to work with them on location that benefits both of us.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
You want me to share that, Mr. Chairman?
Do you have that? I
The
don't.
layout?
You have that layout of that roadway, do you?
Yes, sir.
Is that something the city staff then talked to Port Authority about or not?
No, he just made me aware of it, but
Okay.
since this is just a rezoning without a plan,
Okay.
if and when they come for any development, staff will be looking at that. Now that I have it, I'll put it as part of his plans, and we'll look at it and just make sure now we send a review to Ports Authority since we are aware of this upcoming plan. And I'll also share this with Long Range to make sure we have it. So if you're looking at the screen, the left side is the north. So going from Wilson Avenue, which would be on the right of your screen, the proposed roadway comes through their site and just kind of parallels 435 across the creek and over the railroad, and then going up through to the northern part. So as you can see, their site is right here. And we will start taking that into consideration if and when they come with any proposal.
Okay, and that's just a concept though that the port's put together, so it's not anything solid. So there's still opportunity for the applicant then to do what they want to do in this site, you know, but trying to coordinate the best they can.
Yeah, they will provide a well-needed roadway. Right now, they do not have a road that goes to the site, so I think they will welcome this proposal.
Yeah, because that was my question. Because looking at Wilson, it's not a very appropriate road for truck or even commercial traffic. And then there's there's a school over there too. So I didn't know if the applicant had any thoughts about. And yeah, maybe that's something that we deal with later, but this should be a consideration.
Yeah, this is the KC International Academy right down at this area. So if this takes truck traffic away from Wilson, this will be a welcome development for a welcome improvement for the whole area.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission to the applicant then? Okay. All right. So at this time, let's go ahead and open it up for public testimony then. So if there's anybody from the public that would like to speak regarding docket item number 2, please raise your hand and you'll be called upon.
Mr. Chair, no one's raising their hand.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and close public testimony then. And anything else, Mr. Warder, on this one?
No, thank you.
Okay. At this time, we'll go ahead and close testimony then and speak amongst the commission. If there's nothing to discuss, I'll take a motion, please.
I move to approve docket item 2 without conditions.
Second.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second for approval of docket item number 2 without conditions. Lisa, can you take roll call, please, on that motion? Can hear you, Lisa.
Commissioner Baker?
Aye.
Do you want to get?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Allender?
Aye.
Oh, Commissioner Baker?
Aye.
Crowell?
Aye.
Enders?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
and Rojas.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like the motion passes in 6-0 for approval of the rezoning of the site. So thank you for bringing it in and good luck moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, let's move on to docket item number 5, please.
Docket item 5 is case number CPC 2021-00197. This is a request to detach a portion of the city of Kansas City that includes the Belton Municipal Golf Course so that it may be annexed into the city of Belton. It's about 103 acres located at 4200 Long Avenue. Anna Nanisky is our staff planner.
Thank you, Joe. I just want to give you and the chair a heads up that I don't see my applicant in the attendees list. I can continue, and then we can proceed forward accordingly, or we can just take some other cases for a second, see if they jump on. How would you like to proceed?
Sounds to me like let's just hold this case and move to docket item. Let's see. Joe, help remind me here. So 7 and 9 might be a little bit longer, and we're thinking about moving one up in the agenda.
Yeah, 7 is a city planning staff initiated periodic review text amendment. Number 9 is a presentation from staff on another text amendment. So what I would recommend, Mr. Chair, is taking up docket items 10 and 11 before you return to docket items 7 and 9.
Okay. Does any of the commission have an issue with that? All right. So then, so we're going to hold docket item 5 and then jump to docket item number 11. Is everybody ready for that one?
We do have the appropriate staff online from Water Services for item 10.
Okay.
And then I also see Angela Ely as well for docket item 11.
Okay, let's do that. Let's jump to docket item number 10 then.
All right, docket item 10 is case number CPC 2022-00047. This is a request to approve an amendment to Chapter 88 of the Code of Ordinances, otherwise known as the Zoning and Development Code, to amend the stream buffer provisions of Section 88-415 to allow for certain exceptions to the requirements therein and necessary amendments, other necessary amendments to this section. This is an amendment that has been initiated by the Water Services Department, and I'm going to be promoting here momentarily Andy Shively from Water Services, and he has a presentation that he will provide.
Okay.
To promote him. I don't see him on the list now. He was just on the list and I don't see him now. Wes Mender is on. I'll go ahead and promote him. Oh, here he is. Okay. Andy, I do have your presentation. I don't know if you can unmute and share your video, but I can project your presentation whenever you're ready to get started.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I just can't see. I don't know if it's because I'm on my cell phone. Nope, now I can see the presentation. Thank you, Joe. This presentation set up for tomorrow's Neighborhood Planning and Development Committee. So hence the title slide. So ordinance 220322 proposes changes to Chapter 88, known as the stream buffer ordinance. You can go on to there we go. So we've highlighted some of the changes, and some of these changes were brought about during the review process that city planning and development does all the time. What's a buffer zone? What's a stream? And so it was clarified that a lake, a pond is not a stream. That question had come up at some point during a review. The detention allowance before, if an exception was granted, like I may be skipping because allowable mitigation, there used to just only be mitigation areas, and they were and that was very defined, and they had to be on the project site. That was from a ruling the law department made. And so allowable mitigation now includes federal mitigation credits, including compensatory mitigation. So that's that third bullet there. Several of the changes were, it is said the director of city planning and development, after visiting with Jeff Williams, he thought it was more appropriate that be shifted to the director of water services. So for map revisions and exceptions, that responsibility was shifted to the water services department director. Those two bullets kind of go hand in hand, the 08B and 08C. And then the last bullet there, it goes back to, I'm having a hard time because my phone is so small. I need to upgrade to a bigger phone. And it's part of the plan review. It's plan review. I think this was actually Rex Winkle's comment there. So, or revision as well. You can go on to the next slide, please. Oh, those are the major changes. So thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to talk this morning. Are there questions regarding any of the proposed changes?
So I think just to understand what the changes are, it's mainly with the stream buffer and allowing the applicants to do some sort of mitigation in some way, and how that actually gets permitted, as well as just providing some definitions as to what the buffer area is. Is that kind of what I understand?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, so just curiosity. So if, excuse me, a project is submitted and then it's got, it's related to the buffer area. So the water services will actually review that portion of the project and then permit it themselves versus the planning department, or do you guys work together to make that happen?
Well, we'll work together. The review will be done by water, but permitting is still done through city planning and development. They'll just look for our comments to encompass KC, saying this, what the applicant has proposed is satisfactory, or the applicant needs to do this.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
This still stays within the confines of the plan review process within Compass KC.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure that there's not a separate set of plans or something like that that has to be issued for this permitting piece.
Correct. No, sir. No separate plans required.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I've got sorry, you finish.
Yeah, go ahead. Joe, if you don't, I guess we'll leave that up, that ordinance, unless you want to take it down, Commissioner Allender.
No, you can leave it up. I'm fine. Thanks for the presentation, Andy. Just a couple of questions. How is this affecting these changes? There's a new stormwater management policy that the water department's working on. So how does this play with that? Because I just wanted to understand that. on we're making some changes, does that actually dovetail into the stormwater policy, new stormwater policy that the water department's working on now?
So yes, we're working on updating the APWA 5600 specification. But the Chapter 88 stream buffer is it's a standalone, aside from the APWA 5600 stormwater standards. So the proposed changes were the current code. Let me say it this way: the current code only allows mitigation on the project site. So this allows mitigation on maybe city-owned properties or federal mitigation credits, including compensation. So it gives the city more flexibility during the plan review process, because they may look at it and say, well, it doesn't make sense to do mitigation on this project site. It makes more sense to do mitigation elsewhere or to provide credits. And that's probably one of the biggest changes, is allowing that flexibility within the code of ordinances.
So Andy, does that allow, with the mitigation credits and so forth, does that allow sort of to start to dovetail into stormwater credit trading and so forth?
Well, there are federal, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that was the question.
Okay. Yeah, there are federal mitigation banks, and then those federal, you can purchase credits for those and then buy. That's that compensation into doing, like there's one over the Little Blue River, the Little Blue, and then those dollars will be used for mitigation over there rather than on the project site where it may not make sense.
Yep, no, great. It's I'm just very familiar with the DC area credit stormwater credit trading. So
we're very good.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission?
Yeah, just a quick one on the same note of the credits. Is there a simple explanation as to how those are valued in terms of based upon the project and the mitigation that they can't perform on the site, the value of the credit needed to be purchased?
I have to be honest, it's very complicated. I read the federal application process and how that's all calculated, and it's real complicated. I wish it was much simpler,
thorough.
but it is very thorough, and it follows the federal process.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, so at this time, let's go ahead and open it up for any public testimony. If there's anybody out there that would like to speak regarding docket item number 10, please raise your hand and you will be called upon.
Chair, no one's raising their hand.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public testimony then. Anything else, Mr. Shively, to add?
No, sir. If the commission approves this today, it's planned to be heard before Neighborhood Planning and Development Committee tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, sounds good. It's nice
At the
hearing
pleasure
your
of the
voice, by the
commission.
way.
Thank you, Kobe. It's good to see you.
Yeah, but this time we'll go ahead and close public testimony then, and oral testimony, and speak amongst the commission. If there's nothing to discuss, I'll take a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve docket item number 10 without conditions as stated on the docket.
Okay.
Second.
All right, so I've got a motion and a second for approval of docket item number 10. Lisa, can you take roll call, please, on that motion?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Rojas.
Aye.
Okay, looks like the motion passes then 6-0. Again, thank you for bringing that in, and good luck tomorrow with the Neighborhoods Development Commission.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commission. Have a great day.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Joe, I see Ms. Ely is here to talk about item 11. Do we want to go ahead with that one or go back to number 5 that we have open?
I think it's fair to go ahead with number 11 and then we can come back to 5.
Go ahead with number 11 and then here number 5. Okay, perfect. All right, let's do that.
And can I get John James promoted? He's going to speak after me. He's one of the neighborhood leaders.
Yeah, we'll do that, Angela.
Okay.
Docket item 11 is case number MISC 2022-00004. This is a request to recognize the Wendell Phillips Downtown East Neighborhood Plan, which is on property generally bound by Truman Road on the north, Prospect on the east, 27th on the south, and Paseo on the west. Angela Ely from our long range division will be the staff planner on this. And I'll go ahead and promote John.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me today. As he said, my name is Angela Ely. I'm in long range planning, and I want to present this case to you today. This case is about Wendell Phillips Downtown East Neighborhood Plan and Development Strategy. And as he stated, the plan area is from Truman Road on the north, Prospect on the east, East 27th Street on the south, and then Paseo Boulevard on the west. This plan is to recognize a neighborhood plan and development strategy. And it's a little bit different than what we have done in the past. So normally we have an area plan and then we have a comprehensive plan. And we really don't have neighborhood plans like we used to. In the past, I think it was probably about 10 or 12 years ago, we used to have a lot of neighborhood plans and we decided to consolidate that. This neighborhood thought it was very beneficial to have a neighborhood plan. They're working with the EDC in terms of doing a study to see about tax credits in their area. So one of the requirements of the EDC was to have a neighborhood plan. And that's what they're doing today. Another neighborhood that had their plan recognized was the Ivanhoe Neighborhood. And they had a resolution which recognized the plan. And the reason why we're doing that is because the city staff was not involved per se in the preparation of this plan. And we want to still, and the neighborhood wants to still have this recognized with the city to let them know what their plans are and what they want to do for the future. As I said, there was a neighborhood plan, Ivanhoe in 2005, which recognized their neighborhood plan. This current plan was contracted by Hoxie Collected to prepare a neighborhood plan and development strategies. And as I said, the city did not initiate this plan, but we do want to recognize it. Some of the aspects of this plan, the goals that the neighborhood has, there's 7 goals. They want to look at social cohesion and communication. They also want to concentrate on faith and social services, culture and history, look at reducing crime and improve safety, look at quality housing, health and wellness, creation of a green space, a recreation and green space, education and workforce development, and looking at mobility. So with these goals, they also have strategies with each of the goals. So the strategy identifies how the neighborhood should work with different entities to accomplish their neighborhood goals. It also looks at prioritizing action steps which they have developed. And each year they're going to reevaluate how they've accomplished their goals for that year. And through their strategies, they've also determined a focus area. So they're going to be focusing on 22nd to 26th Street, Prospect Avenue to Brooklyn. And there are tangible strategies for community development that they want to have in this area. Some examples of the strategy that I just wanted to point out, and I'm sure John James will point out some more. One is they want to partner with Parks Department and Black Archives to create a master plan for the parks and a cultural attraction in Wendell Phillips. They also want to connect area schools with additional partners for community service needs, including behavioral and mental health services, life skill training, and ethics. Another one of the strategies is to continue to promote existing efforts with minor home repair and tax abatement. And they want to work with the city to build a continuous and comfortable pedestrian biking environment. One of the things that we discussed with the neighborhood is they wanted their neighborhood plan to be housed on the city website. So what we agreed to do is to have the plan, we are going to have it under other city plans, and it'll be under area plans, then other city plans, and then neighborhood plans. So the request today is to recommend to the City Council to approve the recognition of the Wendell Phillips Downtown East Neighborhood Plan and Development Strategy. And I believe John James has a presentation, or he wants to talk a little bit more about his plan. And I think he's there.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes.
It's a popular thing on Zoom. Can you hear me now? I'm John James. I'm from the Wendell Phillips Neighborhood Association. And I just wanted to just touch on a few reasons why, because as Ms. Ely stated, it's not a common ask today to have an area plan, but we've had a lot of things that bring the opportunity for us to develop in a conscious and comprehensive way, instead of just being available for developers that come in. We've had a lot of undeveloped land caused by projects like the Interstate 71, which took up a lot of space and then only used a little of it and left the rest barren. We had Ethan Taylor scam, which is a man that came in and promised to redevelop most of that vacant land and exacerbated a blight condition that just got worse and lasted for the last 50 years. And we had a lack of sustainable, intentional 18th and Vine development. We've had and the community is just crying for a voice in the redevelopment of this vast land that is available in the inner city. When developers come to our community, they see a blank slate and with the great potential for their imagination. And we as a community, we want them to see beyond just the blight and the overgrowth. And we want them to see the people that are in place today, because they love the culture, they love the history, and they love their community because they stayed even in those conditions. And we believe that the knowledge of community will enhance any development and not impede it. But we just have to have the opportunity to make those claims. And our desired outcome is to receive city support for a neighborhood plan and to guide and align collaboration of partnership with the neighborhood as we continue to develop. And one of our vision statements is that Wendell Phillips is a community that celebrates and strengthens our culture and heritage while stimulating an environment of innovation and self-sufficiency. And we teach our history and we adapt to produce a new model of rebuilding and reconciliation based on love of people and place. And I wanted to just give that quickly because our vision is attempting to impress upon new partners and residents that we embrace heritage and culture, but we encourage the adoption and promotion of change. And we just ask to have a discussion and inclusion to provide insight on what we are changing and to move toward a common good in any endeavor that might come to our community. I'm sorry is that taking too long? I'm sorry. We have a lot of priorities that are consistent with 10 points that we think are very important, and it's a holistic approach. And we have been declared an opportunity zone. We get calls daily for people trying to buy land, and we have large patches of land that is a developer paradise. And we have about 20 projects that are slated to possibly move forward this year and the next year. So we're looking for a team growth and a shared investment instead of just a money investment. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. And I just want to add too, and I didn't say this, that this neighborhood plan, as John was saying, is an intentional effort to reach out to different entities to fulfill their goals that they have for their neighborhood. So they're taking upon themselves to say, these are the goals that we have. This is what we want to achieve. If you want to develop in our area, this is our high standard that we have. And so they're looking at, as I said, different areas. They're looking at school, churches, other developers. They're looking at advancing transportation along their neighborhood and other efforts. So I think this is a good plan. It's a plan that we have compared to our land use, and it's comparable, but the emphasis is not necessarily on land use. It's more on how will the neighborhood move forward in the future. And so that's why it's a plan that's we're seeking to have approved as a recognized plan. It's not a plan by law, but we're recognizing that they're making this effort in their neighborhood, and this is the change that they want to make.
And I just want to close in saying that it took us about almost a year to have several meetings with the faith community, social communities, the business, the bike lane people, and everyone that could bring quality to the lives of the people in the community. And we just want a developer to realize the partnership that can enhance whatever they bring to our community. So it's been a long effort, and it's been a community inclusive effort.
All right, thank you very much. I really appreciate your presentation and everything you shared with us today. I really like the statement that you made, love of people in place. That I know that means a lot to a lot of different people, and I'm glad you're putting that in. I think that's great. Any questions or thoughts from the commission regarding this item?
No, I'd just like to thank the neighborhood leaders of putting this together. I think this is great that it's a neighborhood led development plan and not a developer led plan. So hopefully this will help get a healthy and livable community in the area.
Angela, could you remind me the impetus for this? You said it was the EDC required one, essentially.
Yeah, and I don't know, John, if you wanted to go over that, but yes, they're working with the EDC, and as one of the requirements, they needed to have an established neighborhood plan. and it needed to be recognized by the city. And so that's this effort here is to recognize the plan. It's not like an area plan. It will be go by a resolution, but it's the neighborhood who will be working with the goals that they have in their plan.
And what is the potential extent of the EDC's involvement or commitment? That obviously, hopefully it was significant in that it was worth going through this process. And I think it has value in and of itself, but I'm just curious what the potential help or partnership from the EDC will look like.
Well, we've worked with the EDC, we've worked with UMKC. We've completed a blight study that we're also trying to get recognized, and we're looking for funding to try to pay for the fees and things like that we need to finish our blight study. And this is one element of the blight study. And we have worked with the EDC and talked about the economic development, the conditions currently, and trying to just get a vast understanding of our assets and how we can move forward and show those assets to our potential partners in development.
Got it. Thanks. That's helpful.
I just want to double, triple down on everything that's been said here. Just great work with for the staff to work with neighborhood organizations. This is exactly what we want to see, cooperation with people in their place to kind of set their vision and codify it. John, I would encourage you to talk to, Blue Hills, also Ivanhoe. Not only did they take their plan, but they also worked through the Neighborhood Abandoned Act with legal aid to start to have those abandoned properties in ownership of the neighborhood association, which again allows you tools to negotiate with developers. So again, kudos, I love it. When we see projects come before, we ask, is this in line with the neighborhood plan or is there an area plan? And often too many times in neighborhoods that don't have their vision codified in a resolution or policy, you see development that is not in alignment with the neighborhood's vision, but it meets code. And so again, we have to look at our governance body and say, while we might not agree with it, if it meets the provisions of the codes, we approve it. So I'm glad to see that your neighborhood is taking a strong step to protect their assets. Because you know what? They ain't making no more land. The land is what the land is. So even though it's blighted, it is still an asset, right? So congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay, so at this time, we'll go ahead and open it up for any public testimony. If there's anybody out there that would like to speak regarding docket item number 11, please raise your hand and you'll be called upon.
Mr. Chair, no one's raising their hand.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public testimony then. Anything else to add? Ms. Healy or Mr. James?
I was told never to overdo a sale.
All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and close testimony then, and I'll take a motion, please, from the commission.
Rob, can I ask you a question? Is it in the report, it says acknowledgement? Are we approving, acknowledging? What's the proper language?
Yeah, what we're looking for is just an acknowledgement of the Wendell Phillips study and or the neighborhood plan, and recommend the council also recognize it as well.
Okay, so I'll make the motion. So approve the acknowledgement of the Wendell Phillips Downtown East Neighborhood Plan.
Okay, Ms. Baxter, does that sound good for a motion?
Yes, that's
okay. Good. So I've got a motion and a second for approving the recognition of the Wendell Phillips Downtown East Neighborhood Plan. Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
Yes. Commissioner Allender?
Aye.
Baker? Crowell?
Aye.
Enders?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
And Rojas?
Aye.
Okay, it looks like the motion passes. Thank you again for all the work that you've done, and congratulations on that. And good luck as you guys move forward. with your
Thank you,
project.
sir.
Wonderful job.
Thank you. Thank you, Commission.
Yep. Okay, Joe, let's go back to docket item number 5, if we can. Is the applicant available on that one?
Yes, I do believe so. I'm going to promote Craig at this time. And on it, your staff there on this case.
Perfect.
Okay. Oh, I'm not showing on my screen. My apologies. Okay, docket item number 5 focuses on 4200 Bong Street, is zoned M1-5, and the applicant is seeking to de-annex a portion of Kansas City into Belton, Missouri. So this is a unique request that we don't get a lot, but the de-annexation request is occurring at the very most southern tip of Kansas City, adjacent to Belton. This is a close-up of the subject site. It is highlighted in yellow, and you can see it is the Belton Golf Course. Half of the golf course is in Kansas City, half of it is in Belton, and they wish to acquire the golf course since they are maintaining and using it for their own purposes. There are no strict requirements or review criteria associated with this type of application within the zoning and development code. So I've just listed some key points on the PowerPoint slide and within my staff report to kind of highlight our position on this annexation. It is a contiguous piece of property from Kansas City to Belton, so there won't be a hole or a void within Kansas City. Belton is just acquiring land that is completely adjacent to theirs. The Eagles Landing Golf Course, as it is now known, is formerly the Belton Municipal Golf Course. As I previously mentioned, they have been maintaining it. They've been putting a lot of investment into the property, and they just wish to acquire it on their own. There are no specific recommendations for this land within the Martin City Area Plan. So that suggests that Kansas City, Missouri, we don't have any significant plans for this site. The city of Belton, they have no known plans, as they have made it aware to us, to change or alter this golf course. So from our information, we don't have any ideas that they're going to sell it off to a big developer. They wish to continue to use it as a golf course. And councilperson Andrea Boo, she represents the 6th district, which the site is located, has been informed about this request, and no concerns or oppositions have been shared with DMD, the Development Management Division, our staff. So in conclusion, city staff, we recommend approval subject to conditions. That conditions report is attached to my staff report. That concludes my presentation. I can accept any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the commission to city staff?
Could you share the history of the site? Do you know, when the golf course was created and when that part or that parcel became part of Kansas City, Missouri?
I don't know exactly when it was annexed into Kansas City. It has been there for a significant period of time, and the golf course in question was closed and has recently reopened with a number of improvements. Maybe Greg or Joe, who has a more institutional knowledge about annexation in this area, can touch base on estimating when this was acquired into Kansas City.
Okay, any other questions from the commission?
I think Greg was trying to answer, but his volume's really low.
Okay, well, I'm going to bring him in now. So, Mr. Rokos, welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Greg Rokos. I'm with the city of Belton, and we're at 506 Main Street in Belton, Missouri.
Fortunately, we can barely hear you.
Increase it.
No, not much better.
Is it any better now?
Yeah, that's a lot better.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
That's all
So
right.
the golf course, it was part of Richard Barles Air Force Base. And the Air Force Base was completely annexed into the city of Kansas City back, I think, in the 1950s. And this golf course was actually the officers' golf course that they played at for the Air Force. And so when the Air Force was there, they wanted everything to be in one city. So the golf course, which was just on the north half, I guess, was annexed into Kansas City. At some point, it was changed to a larger golf course, and the south half is in Belton. And so over time, it's always been that way for about the last 70 years, where part of the golf course was in Belton and part of it was in Kansas City. When the Air Force left and closed the base, the golf course was deeded to the city of Belton. And so that's how we became ownership of the golf course. And it's always been in two cities. And so it's just been the desire of the city to get the city golf course in the city. It just kind of makes sense. And so that's all we're asking to try to get accomplished here.
And Commissioner Enders, I got confirmation that the properties south of 155th Street were annexed in 1988.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Rokos, if you had more to present on this case or not?
No, they did a very good job. The staff did presenting. It's a very simple deal.
Okay, all right, thank you. So with that, then let's go ahead and open it up for public testimony. If there's anybody out there from the public that would like to speak regarding docket item number 5, please raise your hand and you'll be called upon.
Mr. Chair, no one's raising their hand.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public testimony then. So with that, if there's nothing else to add, Mr. Rokos, then look for a motion from the commission, please.
I move to approve docket item 5 with conditions.
Second.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second for approval of docket item number 5 with conditions stated. Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
Commissioner Allender?
Aye.
Baker?
Aye.
Crowell?
Aye.
Enders?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
And Rojas?
Aye.
Okay, looks like the motion passes in 6-0. Good luck with the golf course, Mr. Rokos. I look forward to playing there sometime.
Thank you very much. Come on down.
All right. So with that, Joe, I think we're ready for docket item number 7, please.
I was reading and I was muted. Sorry about that. Docket item 7 is case CPC 2021-00186. Amending Chapter 88, the Zoning and Development Code through revisions, clarifications, and other administrative changes throughout the chapter in accordance with the Zoning and Development Code periodic review. Jared Clements is the staff planner.
Good morning, everybody. Let me quickly share my screen here. So before us, we have docket item number 7. This is case number CD CPC 2021-00186. This is the 2021 Q4 periodic review. It includes a number of proposed amendments to the Zoning and Development Code, 7 in total. I'll go through each of the proposed amendments, and then we'll be happy to circle back and answer any questions about them or dive into the actual language of the amendments. So the first amendment proposed is to change the artisan manufacturing use. So the background of this text amendment is somewhat important. I've included a timeline to show the code initially only had artisan manufacturing along with 3 other industrial use group categories. In 2016, the code was amended to break out small scale food and beverage manufacturing as an allowed use and allow it in a few more zoning districts. This amendment is proposed to collapse them all back into a single use category and allows said use in a greater number of zoning districts. While it allows the use in more areas, it also changes the use standards. Part of those standards will be to require that at least 30% of the product produced on site be offered on site when the use is within B1 and B2 zoning, as well as any downtown zoning district and any zoning district that's within the Crossroads area, the downtown loop, the downtown streetcar area, or the Westport area. Staff has received a letter of support in regard to this amendment since the staff report was published. That can be found on Compass KC. The second amendment proposed today is meant to address changing shopping and transportation trends, specifically business models, which include dedicated pickup areas, for example, grocery stores or restaurants. The code currently does not have any language that specifically relates to this feature found in many parking lots around the city. It will allow these uses by right in association with a principal use and has developed standards for those areas. These standards ensure a number of things, including that pedestrian safety is accounted for when designing these areas. They address the shift in parking demand and how the inclusion of these areas will affect the amount of parking spaces that we require. And it also accommodates the signage needs of these parking areas. So the next 2 amendments are smaller. The first one's just a correction to the application filing section of our appeal application section of the code. That's 88-575, specifically -03. That section relates to, you can see there's actually just a redundancy in the code. It says complete application for appeals of administrative decisions must be filed with appropriate personnel in the City Planning and Development Department. And then it describes how soon after that application must be filed. And it just repeats that twice. So we're removing that redundancy for that one. The 4th amendment it is relating to pre-application consultations, specifically for rezonings. Currently, the code only requires a pre-application meeting for a rezoning application if an area plan amendment is also necessary. The reason we want to change this requirement is because we usually find out if an area plan amendment will be necessary at the pre-application meeting. So it makes sense to remove this requirement, as doing so would generally align with our current practices anyway. The next has to do with public engagement meeting format. The mayor's COVID-19 emergency ordinance allowed public engagement meetings to occur virtually. Once that emergency ordinance was no longer in effect, staff went back to requiring that meetings occur in person. Applicants as well as neighborhood organizations have expressed a desire to allow public engagement meetings to occur virtually. So this amendment would take out the sections of the public engagement requirements that refer to meetings occurring in person, and then would create this section that relates to meeting format that essentially defers the preference of the meeting format to the neighborhood organization first, and then allows the applicant to decide. The 6th proposed amendment has to do with the usage of the term family and household in our code. Currently, our code uses family and household interchangeably when referring to housing, building type, or capacity. In the code, family is used less commonly, and the phrases that use it, such as single-family home or multifamily home, are not defined, while those that do not, such as household or detached house, are defined. Staff believes the sections of the code that use family are those that were carried forward from the previous Chapter 80 zoning code, and sections that use household are from Chapter 88, which was adopted in 2011. We believe that aligning the terminology in the code would lead to less confusion and misunderstanding, and as such, staff proposes removing the term family when referring to housing, building type, or capacity. You can see an example of that on the screen there. So the final amendment, number 7, is comprised of 2 small changes. The first just has to do with the title of one of our uses. Currently, the title is Entertainment and Spectator Sports. This leads to confusion when it's just an entertainment venue that has nothing to do with sporting events. Sometimes people don't think that that's included. This is just a measure of clarity. And the other one has to do with a few sections of the code that refer to the uses and use tables as the allowed uses. Most of the zoning code refers to these sections as just uses. A few of them call them allowed uses. We are aligning that and making them all say uses, just so that it's clearer. So staff has found that the proposed amendments comply with the review criteria outlined in the Zoning and Development Code, and staff recommends approval without conditions. I'd be happy to go back to any of those slides if anyone has questions about the different amendments.
Okay, many questions from the commission to city staff regarding these text amendments to the city code.
Yeah, could we go to the dedicated pickup areas one?
Sure.
My only concern, is there like a maximum number that they can have per square feet or whatnot?
I don't believe that there is a maximum that we are implementing, but so it's essentially going to, if you put a parking space in that's for pickup, it will replace a couple of your required parking spaces, but there's a minimum on that. That's the only cap that's within it. So you can only reduce your parking requirement by up to 50% with these dedicated pickup areas.
Okay, I don't think it's gonna be a huge issue. Just for an example, like the Target at Ward Parkway has an ungodly number of pickup, drive up pickup spots, and it feels like, and if you watch this commission, you know I'm not one to cry about parking, but it just feels like it's just taking up a lot of space and it's not being used. And so I'm wondering, maybe this is just like an outlier, but I'm wondering if there's a way to kind of figure out that demands a little bit more effectively to make the space work better for people. But I know a lot of places only have 1 or 2, so it's not a huge deal. So that's just something to keep in mind, I think, as we look at how these are implemented. Do these big box stores take up 50 parking spaces with drive up spaces, and only 10 of them are maybe used at a time? So.
Gotcha. Thank you for the feedback.
I have a question and comment on the percentage of product offered on site for artisan uses. So 88-318-01-D. And the way it reads, the way I would read it is favorably for the business in terms of, it says 30% of product offered needs to be offered on site. In that, I read that as like product assortment. I don't think that's the intent. I think the intent is that of 100% of the business's sales, 30% needs to be, earned through that location. I would encourage us to not have it read that way and make it so that there's a shop, it's a legitimate shop, and you can come in here, but I wouldn't want to cap it. I think there are a lot of great artisan uses where potentially they could do good volume of sales both on the street, but through their brick and mortar and online, or through wholesale, and they might not hit that 30%. So to me, it seems a little strong. I like the idea of it, the intent of it, but 30% seems too high for me. And regardless of whether that's kept or not, I think we should reword it so that it's a little more clear that it says 30% of all revenues that the business generates from this location must come through the brick and mortar store.
Okay, understood.
Jared, is it possible to explain kind of the intent of that, how the 30% came up and what's it really intended to mean?
Sure. Well, I believe if Joe is available, this portion of the amendments, I believe Joe had the most say in. So if he wants to answer that.
Yeah. Commissioner Enders, the current ordinance, I believe, has a similar limitation, but it's at 50%. But I do think, so we were trying to actually be more lenient and allow and acknowledge that a lot of the sales for most of these businesses will be online today, because I think the current ordinance just references retail versus wholesale. And so we reduced it down to the 30%. And there was no specific reason for 30%. We just wanted to be more lenient. So we could go lower if that's the desire of the commission. The other thing is that we were trying, because we're allowing this use in more districts, we want to make sure there is a storefront presence, because that will help to self-police the industrial aspect or the manufacturing aspect of the use. We believe that most operators will operate just fine regardless, but if they have the general public coming to a retail storefront, they're going to operate probably in a more responsible manner with less of a nuisance, because that would impede their sales potentially, and therefore they'll be a better neighbor. Also, the other aspect of encouraging this is that everyone knows it's a challenging retail environment out there right now, and there are a lot of empty storefronts. We believe that this will be a way of reusing some of those empty storefronts if we allow this type of small scale manufacturing to occur in other retail locations. So that's kind of the purpose of this amendment. There's a lot of people who have expressed to us since our 2016 amendment that they desire to do artisanal manufacturing that's not food and beverage. We've had people approach us about jewelry and soaps and stuff like that. And under the current ordinance, they would be considered artisanal manufacturing, but not food and beverage. And food and beverage was carved out, a niche that was carved out and given extra benefit in terms of the districts it was allowed in. And those types of businesses, since they're not food and beverage, weren't eligible for that. And so that's why we're back here for this amendment today. Yeah. Did I answer all those questions? I'm not sure.
Yes, thank you. I should have prefaced it by saying I'm a big fan of these amendments. I do think, yeah, we should go lower with it. I can think of a handful off the top of my head, from a ceramicist to a jewelry person to others who aren't food and beverage, where they might have a really nice storefront and manufacture in the back, but just the way that their business model works today, the majority of their sales are going to come through wholesale partnerships or online. But I very much like the intent. And yeah, I don't know if there's, in one sense, you could take it almost to 10% or 1% in theory, because you're saying you have to be selling through a brick and mortar store. And so I'd be in favor of anything below 30. 20, I think, is sufficient. The other reason I bring it up is because I'm in a situation where we sometimes have to report on certain things, whether it's liquor sales or the percentage that is consumed on site versus not on site, liquor sales as a ratio to food sales. And I worry about the tracking of this and creating more work for other people. And obviously, as you said, it's already in existence. But I think lowering it to 20% might be useful. And then again, just making it clear that it's sales and not just product offered. Because otherwise, I would think if I have 10 different belts that I make, well, if I offer 3 of them in the store, I've hit 30%.
Right. Right. Yeah, that was your other question, and I agree with you that that our intent is to measure the sales, or to track it from that basis. So if that's something that you're suggesting, that is our intent, and I think we should clarify that language.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else from the commission, questions for staff? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and open it up for public testimony then. If there's anybody out there that would like to speak regarding docket item number 7, please raise your hand and you'll be called upon.
Mr. Chair, Tess Sobol has raised her hand. I've promoted her.
Okay. Hi, as you take yourself off of mute, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Hi, yes. My name is Tess Sobel. I work with Kinley Horn, located at 4201 West Winfield Road in Warrenville, Illinois. I work for Kinley Horn on the Target Drive Up Expansion Program, and we just wanted to take the time to voice our support for this text amendment. Target's been rolling out their Drive Up program nationwide to service guests who place online orders for Target team members to deliver it to their vehicle. And this program includes several Kansas City locations. I know I've had personally a lot of coordination with the city's planning and zoning department for several of these projects. And I know adding specific language to the code that applies to these types of mobile ordering projects will help streamline the planning and permitting approval process for both us and the city. So just all in all, on behalf of Target, we wanted to voice our support for this text amendment.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else, Joe?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Stephen Chase has been promoted.
Okay. Hi, Stephen. As you take yourself off of mute, please state your name and address for the record.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Stephen Chase, business address 1313 Atlantic, North Kansas City. We've been in business there for 6 years. We're looking to acquire property in the Marlboro Village area at 81st and the Paseo. And we can't purchase this property and use it for our purposes as a small consumer products manufacturer unless this text amendment goes through for the artisanal manufacturing. So I'm just testifying in support of that.
Okay. As something that was brought up, is the 30%, is that something that bothers you on that, or?
As I understand the text amendment, districts that are zone B3 will not have that retail restriction. I think it's B1 and B2. However, we do intend to have a retail function in the front of our property. Yes.
Okay. I was just curious about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else, Joe?
No, that's it, Mr. Chair. And he's correct that the retail presence is only required in our downtown zones and B1 and B2, which are neighborhood commercial. And regardless of zoning, it's also allowed, and it's also required in the downtown loop, Crossroads, Westport, any pedestrian oriented area it would be required in.
Okay. All right.
So just one last question.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Kobe. I had one more question. So in regards to the square footage requirements, I was just thinking that, of course, if there's any special circumstance where someone's at 5,500 square feet instead of 5,000, they can talk to city staff and go through a special use permit application process. It's a little bit more work, but no need to make those changes in terms of, because I could see a lot of people being at 6,000 square feet as opposed to 5. Is that the right way to look at it, that address those one-off situations as they come up?
I believe, Jared, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we were upping the floor area from 5 to 20,000. Is that?
I believe it's different in different zone or yeah, depending upon the zoning.
Okay.
Let's go. Yeah, I can see that it's 5,000 in the old code, and I'm going to check the new code right now.
It's 5,000 in B1 and DR. And again, I think like I can think of examples that don't really fit that right now, but are exactly what we kind of want to, revitalize or reuse empty buildings. But again, if it's a relatively efficient process, I don't think there's a need to necessarily change that, but it does seem a little bit low.
Yeah, you're right, Commissioner Enders. The proposed amendment does limit it to 5,000 square feet in District B1 and DR. DR is downtown residential, and then B1 is neighborhood commercial. So these are the ones that are closest in proximity, typically to residential uses. So that's why we were keeping it. The current limitation is 5,000 square feet. We were keeping it at 5,000 in those two districts and then 20,000 everywhere else. The current language does not, it's just prohibited to be above 5,000 square feet. The only option, and I'm not even totally sure that this would be available legally, is a variance to exceed the 5,000 square feet, unless you want to allow it to be approved by an SUP, which we could add into the ordinance before we take it to council, if that's the commission's desire. Or you can change the number, whichever you would prefer.
Yeah, it's tough because I was thinking about some buildings in specific where maybe they have a limited amount of street frontage that would be perfect for a shop, but sometimes they're really deep, or they have 2 floors and you'd be over. But I don't want to spend time here to talk about it. So now that you all know my thoughts and have a sense for them, I'm totally comfortable however you decide to either, make changes or keep it as is.
Well, wouldn't we want to recommend something?
Yeah, because once you guys make a recommendation, we can't change it unless you all have made that recommendation. So if you want to require an SUP for anyone to go above, to get people an outlet to go above 5,000 square feet in those districts, then you would need to include that as part of your recommendation.
Got it. I think that's helpful just because then it feels as though there's another option.
Because I mean, technically, Joe wouldn't. So there's a couple options, right? It's like you can do an SUP or you could just rezone. That's a different process, but I think I would be comfortable with SUP. I think one of the challenges is I think the manufacturing could vary a lot. And so I think that's the only thing that I think the neighborhood should be a little bit more apprised of if it's a larger space. So.
Yeah, and I would think my recommendation would be if we want to allow it in certain circumstances, and based upon your comment there, Commissioner Baker, I think the best practice would be to require an SUP for anything above 5,000 instead of rezoning or a variance.
Well, then I would love to add that caveat, and then also just for the sake of it, reduce the product offered language to 20%, but then change it instead of product offered. Just make it read so that it's 20% of total sales generated from the premises or from the business on the premises.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Because right now we need to close all public testimony. And then, so I think we're back to a discussion between the commission and city staff. And it sounds like we've got everything addressed, maybe. Any other commissioners have any comments?
My only question is 20% low enough?
Yeah, I mean, if there's no harm in going to 10%, because again, it's like, it proves you have to have some sort of physical store there. There's no way you can generate 10% if you don't have a store, then yeah, might as well we'll drop it so that we don't have a weird situation where someone's not in compliance.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the intent is to have storefronts. And I think
yeah,
whether people sell, I mean, I think we've seen this in kind of rural communities I've been to where, I mean, it's mostly online shopping, but the storefront activates that entire kind of small downtown. So I think that it serves the purpose. So I'd be okay with 10% even.
Staff has no objection to that.
Okay. All right, let's somebody make a motion, please.
So I move to approve docket item 7 without conditions, noting the changes to the artisanal amendment to include if above 5,000 square feet would require a special use permit, and that required sales from on-site, I believe Commissioner Enders did a better job of stating it, would be 10% of sales.
Second.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second for approval of docket item number 7, but amending the storefront to 10% versus 30, and then anything greater than the 5,000 square feet to require a SUP. I think I stated that right. Okay, Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker.
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Rojas.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like the motion passes in with those changes, Jared. Thank you for bringing those forward.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So that leaves us now with the last docket item, which is docket item number 9. Is everybody okay? Do we need a short break before we get started?
Docket item 9 will probably take a little bit of time, if that makes a difference for everyone.
Let's take like a 10-minute break then, just a 10 or 15-minute break, just to get prepared for it.
Well,
All right, so it's 11 o'clock right now, so we're going to take a break until 11:15 then. Be back at that time.
yeah, Alice told me about it, and she told me she's gonna call me again and remind me.
Okay, looks like I got a minute here before we get everybody back and get started again. So Dr. Hill, are you back?
I'm here, Kobe.
Okay, looks like we have everybody back. Do we have the applicant available on this one? Perfect. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and reconvene the meeting, and we'll start and go to docket item number 9, please.
All right, docket item number 9 is case number CPC 2021-00214, amending Chapter 88, the Zoning and Development Code as it pertains to Section 88-535 for minor subdivisions, and Section 88-110-06 for residential districts lot and building standards, which we're collectively referring to infill residential development amendments, and any necessary related amendments. Najma Muhammad will be presenting this case to you today. And just for clarity, we're presenting to you information about this, and we would just like your feedback. We're not asking for you to take action. And Najma will explain a bit more about that.
Good morning. How are you all? I'm gonna hope good. So this will be, again, as Joe said, just informational and allowing for you all to give feedback, any comments or concerns you all may have. So the infill residential development ordinance is in reference to 2 parts of Chapter 88 that we're proposing amendments to. One is to the lot and building standards, and the other is to the minor subdivision regulations. This, again, is a presentation that we've been giving to neighborhood groups, so in part of our public engagement efforts to various areas of the city who are either most impacted slightly, or just requested greater information on the changes that we're proposing. So in doing this, we're wanting to make sure they have a deeper understanding of what the goal of this infill residential development ordinance change is. And part of that is having understanding about what development is, which is essentially any building, construction, or renovation, changing of a structure at all on a residential level all the way up to industrial and commercial levels as well. But this is very much so for strictly infill residential lot and building standards at this time. And again, who are developers? This is anyone who is any individual or entity that owns, invests, finances, manages a property. So this can be homeowners, this can be renters investing in the maintenance of properties in any land that they own. And what is infill residential development on the more straightforward level, outside of how we'll be defining it in Chapter 88, is development on undeveloped lots surrounded by developed lots or existing structures. And this can also be the improvement of existing developed lots that may be considered non-conforming or proposed definition of infill. So what we're proposing is not something that residents or developers cannot already do. It just requires a lengthier process, part of which may bring them before City Plan Commission or the Board of Zoning Adjustment, more than likely, when it comes to requesting variances because of non-conforming lots and them not being able to fit into our current lot and building standards based on zoning. And so they'd have to go through the Board of Zoning Adjustments, pay application fees, or take the time to have pre-application meetings and submit documentation and all of that. And at the end of the day, the Board of Zoning Adjustments has that final determination. So ultimately, if their request is denied, they just can't do it. And if it is approved, it is going to be within those confines that was allowed for through their variance request. But again, that takes time, money, and effort. And typically when incremental developers or just homeowners or even renters are wanting to alter their property in any way and have to go through this process, it is an automatic deterrent, and they usually do not follow through on it, knowing that it is not a guarantee, because it's riskier to put money to something that you may not be able to do at the end of the day. And so our proposed process is the infill development lot and building standards. So essentially we'll determine if your lot meets our current zoning code requirements, and if it does not meet our current zoning code requirements and it falls into the definition of an infill residential lot, then we would apply what we have as the infill lot and building standards, which you can view on the Chapter 88 website, or by going to the case Encompass KC. You can see in much more detail what those standards are in terms of mathematically how we will determine lot and building standards for setback requirements, front, side, and rear, much of which is based on the context of the homes that are already on the lot. So instead of requiring them to fit into today's standards of R6, it would allow for them to build under the standards that were previously allowed for under whatever the lots on that block were platted under or previously zoned as, and allowing them to build in a way that is contextual to the surrounding properties. And again, if you do not fit into infill lot and building standards, or you're not considered an infill residential lot, or you're wanting to build even outside of those infill lot and building standards, then you would again have to go back through the conventional standard process that I just went through. And so what this means, or what the difference is that by right development versus the entitlement process. The entitlement process is having to receive permission from boards like this City Plan Commission, the Board of Zoning Adjustments, or City Council. And many projects have to go through that in order to be fulfilled. What we are trying to allow for is greater access to by right investments or by right development by the typical homeowner or incremental developers, who can then build under what the zoning and development code allows, because it is essentially bringing into conformance or making legal many of the lots we deemed non-conforming based on, again, zoning or annexation after lots had already been platted, and so on. So again, conforming versus non-conforming. Conforming simply means, does it fit into our current lot and building standards? Is the lot width appropriate? Is the area of the lot appropriate? And are they able to meet the front, rear, side, street, side, yard setbacks without going outside of what the code allows for? And if they have a buildable space and can do that and fit within those requirements, they're considered conforming. But the moment they are not, if this likely includes homes that are already built into setback requirements and today's code, like the homes you see here on the screen, all of these are considered non-conforming, but as you can see, they're perfectly fine homes. They're set back a distance from the street, but something about the lot based on the current zoning deems them non-conforming. So this could be lot width, this could be any of the setbacks or the area of the lot, as I stated before. And so the portion of the minor subdivision ordinance that coincides with the infill development lot and building standards, sorry, let me go back. Minor subdivisions, what are they? They're how lots are made, and oftentimes we bring before you things like platting and all of that, but before many applicants have to get to that stage, they have to go through subdivision processes. And so portion of those processes are administrative approval processes, which are lot splits, lot line adjustments, and lot consolidation. And so what we're allowing for is more straightforward lot splits in a portion of our minor subdivision ordinance. And so issues that we've seen that need to be addressed through our minor subdivision ordinance amendment is eligibility criteria and approval criteria for applicants, and different assumptions made by applicants from our code. And a lot of it is just providing clarity. And what our current subdivision code requires in terms of how many lots have to be split before they get to the major subdivision process. And we're expanding that number from 6 to 20. And so what is the solution with those issues that I just presented for minor subdivisions? The first solution is the city approval of by right consolidation of lots or reestablishing lots. So essentially, if you're wanting to reestablish previously platted lines, you would be able to do that by right instead of going through a lot split minor subdivision process. So for example, in this picture, this pink line is a previously platted line. And so if this homeowner or property owner wanted to split this lot back into 2 lots, they could do so by right and would not have to go through the minor subdivision process. However, in doing so, you're now creating a smaller lot that, while contextual to the neighborhood, still has to fit into whatever zoning code applies to this land. So say if it's R6, the likelihood of this being able to meet all of those lot and building standards are very slim, which is why we are pairing this with the infill lot and building standards. And so I will go through this really quickly. So part of the minor subdivision ordinance amendment is naming them by types, just to make them a little bit more clear and straightforward. A type 1 is a lot line adjustment or combination. And if you all want more information about these in details, I can, but just going through them rather quickly. Type 2 would be lot split, or the creation of more lots, which is for example, what you just saw before, which if they are not reestablishing previously platted lot lines, they still will have to go through our standard minor subdivision administrative approval process. And then type 3 is the net increase of up to 20 lots. So where it was 6 lots before and you had to go through a major subdivision process, we're now allowing you to split up to 20 lots for a type 3. So this is between 6 and 20 lots, while the lot split for type 2 is between 2 to 5 lots. Lastly is the condominium plat, which we already do and allow for. We're just simply, again, keeping with the same naming convention and naming it type 4. Again, as I stated before, this is another example of what the by right reestablishing of the originally platted lot lines will look like. And that's more of a street view of what that would look like. So in terms of the lot and building standards for residential districts, we're having to now, if the minor subdivision amendments are approved, that would require us to expand our lot and building standards to allow for developers to build on these newly created or reestablished lots without having to go through extensive entitlement processes. And so as of right now, we have 3 lot and building standard types: conventional, open space, and conservation. And we are proposing to introduce the 4th, infill development. So the infill development standards would allow for lots that are in context with the surrounding properties. It would allow for building in a way that is contextual to the surrounding properties. So your front and rear and side yard setbacks are now going to be based on that of those homes on the same block face as you. And so you wouldn't be exceeding or going too far below the limit of what already exists in your block. And it would, again, legalize many of the lots that are technically buildable, but because of zoning changes or whatever, are now considered non-conforming, and people are unable to build on them unless they are able to get certain variances passed through the Board of Zoning Adjustment, which again creates barriers because of the time and money it takes for something that is not necessarily guaranteed. This is also going to allow us to improve existing housing stock. So as I said before, infill is not just the infill development standards does not just apply to those lots that are currently vacant, but they also apply to homes that exist on non-conforming lots. So if you're wanting to expand your home in the back of a deck or in addition to your home, another room, and your lot already or your home already sits in the setbacks of your lot, you would likely have to go through a variance process. However, if the expansion of your home fits with the context of the neighborhood in terms of how we're calculating for infill, you will not necessarily have to do that if it does not go outside of what we determine are the infill measurements for your particular lot. This is just an example of various types of infill development that you may see. While we are changing the development standards, we aren't impacting the residential housing types that are allowed. So you won't necessarily see a small apartment building coming up next to your home just because it's an infill lot. The actual housing type still has to be allowed in that residential zone district in order for them to build. So it is likely, say if you live in an R1.5, but if you live in an R6, that isn't a worry for you. You should still be the goal is to see infill development that reflects the character of what's already there. And so when we are proposing these definitions and these standards, we have to provide definitions to clarify it in the Chapter 88 Zoning and Development Code. So the infill residential development definition that we are offering is any residential development, whether existing, new construction, or modification to an existing residential structure on an infill residential lot. And what is an infill residential lot? Is any lot zoned residentially and meeting one or more of the following criteria described by deed or plat recorded prior to January 1st, 1954, or annexed into the corporate limits of Kansas City prior to January 1st, 1954. So even if it weren't annexed until after January 4th, 1954, it may still have been described by deed or plat prior to that date, within whatever jurisdiction it was in previously. And so this, I don't know if any of you all have been able to explore the Chapter 88 webpage or access this city parcel map that we've created for the purposes of understanding this ordinance in greater context, but this is the City of Kansas City non-conforming lots parcel map. And essentially what we show here is how many non-conforming lots are in the city. We were able to calculate with the help of our GIS team, approximately 23,000 residential non-conforming lots. And so that's what you see populated across the map in this purple and in this red. And I'll zoom in a little bit to give you some clarity about what that means. And so here on this map, you'll see the purple represents non-conforming lots. Again, that means they do not fit within the current zoning and development standards. The orange, or if it's a mixture of purple and orange, is vacant and non-conforming. And then for those that you see red, the red dotted line around, these are lots that are deemed combined per a section of our code that deems non-conforming lots under common ownership combined. And so many of the non-conforming lots you may see as being combined. So what the infill residential development lot and building standards would allow for is one, to essentially allow these lots to be separate by right, because they do indeed fit into now what we are considering infill development standards. And so though they would be legalized by that definition, but also if people still wanted to have their lots combined, that is a choice for them. But this would no longer be considered, say, an illegal plot of land, because if we're going by this would be multiple structures on one lot. And so that's part of what the infill development ordinance is trying to rectify, essentially. So that's our map. If you all want to view this, the link for it is on the Chapter 88 webpage, and I can provide it in the chat if that's something you all are interested in. But that concludes my presentation. If you all have any questions, myself and Joe can answer them for you.
I had a quick question. And maybe this is separate and it's more of a legal aspect, but how does this deal with encroachment of properties onto other properties? Or if you split it, right, and there's a garage or there's a parking lot, or how does that work? And that has to be adjusted, right, potentially, and how does that interact with the potential infill development standards?
So I'm not 100% sure that I understand your question, but if you're referring to lot splits and encroachments, for example, if there were a driveway, for instance, that set between two properties and the lot line went through it, that would be more of like an easement question, an access easement question. However, we don't allow for lot splits through buildings per se. The lot split would have to either include or exclude the structure. Is that an answer to your question?
Yeah, I just know that on a lot of these, people have kind of built things on adjoining lots, or maybe they own 3 lots and they've built others. And so I just was wondering, and that generally answers my question about that, because I think that might be a major issue on some of these properties.
Yeah, I think you might be referring to, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you might be referring to, like, let's say I own, I have a house and the house next door to me was torn down at some point, and I maintained the lot and then I purchased it. And then over time I built a garage or a shed on it. And I've owned both, so that's fine. But now I want to sell that second lot that's been vacant that has a shed on it. And in those scenarios, that is a good question, because that building is considered an accessory building to my house. And once it's on a separate lot, it becomes the principal building. And then the question becomes does it meet the requirements for principal buildings, and is the use of that principal building an allowed use? But that's something that Commissioner Baker, that is already an issue with it, that we encounter all the time. And this ordinance wouldn't make it easier or better or fix that situation. It would just be a part of the conversation we would have with that property owner before they consider selling that lot, because it would potentially create a new problem for them if they were to sell that and it has just that shed on it.
Couple questions. This excites me a lot. There was a case earlier that we had where there's a similar type of argument made, and I did not think it was the best use of the property at the time, or the best plan to divvy it up, because a lot of the neighbors in that area, this is like just north of Bannister Road, a lot of homes in the 50 years, the last 50 years, 70 years have been built over multiple lots. And so it seemed as though there was a big variety, or it'd be a very different style of home and a different type of density. Overall, I think this makes a ton of sense. What is the best way to navigate those neighborhoods that haven't really as much conformed by the original lot lines over the past number of decades? How do we get ahead of that as a city to make sure that those neighborhoods understand, yep, things have changed. You might see different types of development, and it's part of an overall comprehensive good plan. Because I do think the reason that I felt for those neighbors is because I could see how someone might have lived there for decades and been like, are you kidding me? All of a sudden now there's going to be 3 houses across the street that are just taking up the exact same amount of space as my house is.
Yeah. So I think I recall the case you're referencing, and there's been a fair amount of infill development there. And in that particular neighborhood, it was platted in the 1800s, well before the city annexed it. So under this ordinance, it would be considered an infill lot, and infill residential development standards would apply. And as you point out, the common pattern of development in that neighborhood was there were, I believe, 30-foot wide platted lots, but over time, how those lots were developed is someone purchased 3 of the lots and then they built a ranch style house over those 3 lots. So that that's the encroachment question as well, where you have an existing home over 3 platted lots. And that we've actually been posed that question by some people, you know, what are we considering to be a lot here, the platted lot or the parcel, which is the ownership of the 3 platted lots. And without getting any more being any more confusing than we might already be, I won't go into details about the differences, but it doesn't really matter because the code defines lot as any piece of land suitable or created for development, whether it's a parcel for tax purposes, a parcel for ownership purposes, or a platted lot. It meets that definition. So the question posed to us is similar to yours, Commissioner Enders, which is how do you deal with that situation where you have 1 parcel but 3 lots and 1 house across those 3 lots on that 1 parcel? And I think that the answer, this is why we're pairing these two, the minor subdivision amendment up with the infill development standards, because the standards themselves would govern what can ultimately be built on the resulting lot. So it would, in the case of that neighborhood, it would not be feasible, I would say, or most likely would not be feasible to build 3 houses, 1 per platted lot, because you wouldn't be able to build the house. So let me back up. It would not be feasible to divide those properties or reestablish those platted lots into 3 lots because you could not build the 3 houses because of the infill standards. So the lot lines and how they're created would be controlled in part based upon what you can build, and what you can build has to be similar to what's there.
So that developer, though, he was finding a way to put 3 homes next to each other, which I think in a lot of neighborhoods made sense. I mean, I think the thing that we all try to be sensitive of is you don't want neighbors who've lived there for a long time to feel as though their neighborhood can change in a short span of time and they feel unwelcome all of a sudden for some reason. And yeah, so I mean, I think it's the right path forward. I'm just wondering if there's any way to message it to kind of give people a heads up that it's going to be happening, because there are some streets in that neighborhood where there are a lot of vacant lots, and I imagine there could be a lot of really quick development. You know, some pretty savvy developers who work with good economies of scale could really, in a good and, you know, maybe uncomfortable for some way, transform some streets really quickly.
Right, but the problem is right now is that many of the lots are non-conforming, and to back way up, Kobe's probably the only one that remembers because he was on the commission at the time. Some of the houses you've seen that got built in that neighborhood and many others, we approved the building permits for those on the basis of a provision in our definition of lot area, which says that any lot that's non-conforming with regard to lot area is eligible for a single family home. That provision's been in our ordinance for as long as we talked to people that had been here almost 40 years. They remember it being in there for the past 40 years, and the city overall had always relied upon that to issue permits on non-conforming lots. In 2018 or 19, there was an appeal filed on our decision to issue a building permit on a non-conforming lot. That appeal goes, like all appeals or staff level decisions, goes to the Board of Zoning Adjustment. They, on the basis of a different amendment, which deems non-conforming lots to be combined when they're in common ownership, the Board of Zoning Adjustment overturned our decision. And so the effect that that's had is it set a precedent to where any lot that's non-conforming and is deemed combined can only get a building permit or split in accordance with the stricter provision of the ordinance that the board found. And it's made it to where virtually anyone wanting to build a house on a non-conforming lot, especially one that's deemed combined, has to go through a variance process through the Board of Zoning Adjustment or a major subdivision process through you all and then to council. And of course, the variance process is very risky. And it's the shorter of those two options, but it's riskier. And the major subdivision process can take, realistically, it probably takes about a year to go through the preliminary and final plat. So as you can imagine, if you're a property owner and you're wanting to sell a couple of your lots that you purchased over time next to you that are vacant, that's a very discouraging. You don't think of yourself as a developer, but in the process of selling those two lots to someone who's interested in building on them, you really are acting as a developer. But that entitlement process is something that frightens you because of you've never done it before. You don't consider yourself a developer. So we're trying to make that easier, allowing those folks to reestablish the lots that once existed, to recreate them. They're no longer deemed combined if this ordinance were to pass. And then they can sell those lots and someone can build on it. But in exchange for making that easier, what you build has to be contextually sensitive to the built environment of that neighborhood. It cannot, because there's other concerns in other neighborhoods, of course, of 3-story buildings sandwiched in between 2 1.5-story craftsman houses, and they're out of scale and out of context with the block that they're on or the houses on the block that they're on. And so we feel like it's really integral for the two of these to go together, that if we're going to make it easier to reestablish these lots or create new lots, that the resulting development on those lots needs to be consistent with what's around it.
Hey, Joe, this is Travis with Casey Water. We'll want to work with you for some specific language in there to cover utilities, because a lot of these lots were combined for the purpose of reaching public utilities. And so if they go back to if it's allowed by right to split them again, you could have situations where people feel that they are entitled to run service lines or lateral lines across adjacent lots, which they're not allowed to. So we need to make sure that we have that covered so that it's very clear if they go back to this, where the lots are being split up, that there is adjacency to the public utilities in those, so that they do not have their service lines crossing the adjacent lots.
Joe and Najma, could you talk about how we would codify contextual? Because I think Commissioner Rojas's neighborhood has battled contextual design and kind of standards. So I was wondering how you all plan to make it clear so that we end up with the result that we desire within the realistic development conditions that we have.
Right.
So when
you show the language
for the definitions?
No, the actual lot and building standards.
Oh, sure. Yes. And when I was saying contextual, I meant based on this language that I'm about to put on the screen here, not necessarily implying a set of like design standards or anything like that, but more so the building standards. Let me improve a moment.
And while she's doing that, I'll just explain. Oh, wait, here it is. So this is the proposed language, and I'll let Najma describe it, but this is what would be codified.
So as I was saying previously, so in terms of contextual, we're taking a percentage of the average of the lot area of those homes that are on the same block face. And that can be, again, 75% of the average lot width to determine the lot width, or no less than 90%, no greater than 110% of the average provided front yard setback for the homes on the same block face. The code already defines block face. It's simply the homes that are on the same side of the street as your home, and those homes still that are abutting you to the left and right, or if you're on a corner lot, to in either direction.
So Commissioner Baker, the current ordinance, if you scroll to the top of this sheet, it prescribes set standards for each of those districts that run across the top from R80 to R0.3. And as you can imagine, a neighborhood, you know, up north at Shoal Creek Parkway and 169 that's zoned R7.5 is being developed now. It's relatively easy for them to follow the standards prescribed for R7.5, but a neighborhood, you know, in Midtown that's zoned R7.5, it was developed before zoning even existed in Kansas City. So it's harder for those lots to follow those prescribed standards. So the standards wouldn't be prescribed, they would be based upon the average provided on the same block face by the existing.
Okay. I think that's a good approach, because does that include square foot of homes, like a range of square foot of homes and
you have a FAR at the bottom. Floor area ratio is the area of the home, total floor area of the home divided by the lot area.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good approach, because I don't know, just thinking about my block in Waldo, I mean, most of our homes are 1,000 to 1,200 square feet, but there are some bigger ones that would help give you a little bit more range on that average. But it also isn't a gigantic home. So I think that I like how this is approached, because it's clear, and you kind of can look at the block and kind of figure out what you're able to build pretty relatively easily. Are you guys going to have like a tool to kind of figure that out from either like using the parcel view or a GIS, to where you can say, oh, on this block, what is the FAR average? What is the height requirement? So it's maybe just like an easy kind of list of what's potential to build.
Yeah, that's a great idea that we've thought about and discussed internally. We currently have a calculator we built internally, just using a Google sheet, but that spits out numbers for you and is very helpful for staff to evaluate. But having some sort of widget calculator on our website or in Parcel Viewer is something that could be beneficial to property owners, and we could work on that. Whether we can deliver it is a different question, but I think it's a good idea that we'll pursue.
And so next steps, BZA, and then potentially goes into effect as soon as BZA approves it.
Yeah, so we're in the midst of, we initiated this amendment in November. At the staff level, we've been talking about it for some time internally, because we're aware of these issues that we're facing citywide. And again, there's two issues we're trying to resolve: the non-conforming lot situation and actually three. Non-conforming lot situation, the creating an easier path to replatting or reestablishing lots. And the third is ensuring that infill development, as we're seeing more and more of it throughout the city, is more compatible with what's around it. So those are the three things we're trying to resolve with this. And we've been talking about that for some time. We initiated this amendment in November. And then since January, we've been talking with Kansas City Neighborhood Advisory Council and the Center for Neighborhoods at UMKC. The Center for Neighborhoods has been integral in helping us with that neighborhood outreach. We had our first town hall. We had a virtual town hall with good attendance about 3 weeks ago, and then our first neighborhood level meeting last week. And I'm gonna toss it to Najma to share with you what the rest of the plan is as far as public outreach. But the reason we're here today is just to update you and let you know what we're working on, and to get your feedback so that we can make sure to incorporate that. But the goal would be to eventually come back to you all and ask for your recommendation so that we can take this forward to council. Najma, do you want to share what our schedule is for the remainder of the public outreach?
So the following meetings will be every Thursday through May 5th. And we have 2 in-person meetings with 2 groups in the South, the Center Planning and Development Council and Southern Communities Coalition, and at their monthly meetings. So one is tomorrow with Southern Communities Council, and the other one is next Tuesday with the Center Planning and Development. And then for the neighborhood meetings, I can share our link in the chat here. And these we have determined based on interest and some similarities in terms of neighborhood context or the level of impact that they may face in terms of infill lot and building standards and non-conforming lots. Is it okay for me to share that information in the chat in terms of dates and neighborhood names?
Yeah, I think that's fine. The commissioners understand they can't attend the meetings, but yes, that's fine.
Okay. I'll just share this to everyone.
There's several more meetings that we have, and as Najma was indicating, that there's individual neighborhoods that have expressed a combination of neighborhoods that have expressed interest in learning more about this as it relates to their neighborhood. But there's also ones we've identified who didn't necessarily express an interest, but we see one of them, for example, was Blue Hills, that neighborhood that Najma was showing you on that map, where I would estimate that like 80% of the lots are non-conforming. They did not necessarily express an interest, but we reached out to them directly because it's so widespread in their neighborhood. And so we're meeting with these neighborhoods in small groups to go through the issues they're facing at the neighborhood level, at their scale, to take their feedback and then to share how this ordinance might impact them.
Joe, this may not be a part of your amendment, but how are you addressing, as you're going in with infill, making sure that there's enough green space within a neighborhood or a community and so forth as developers build out, or we're getting more infill? I'm for infill, but I'm just thinking about green space for livable and healthy neighborhoods as well.
Yeah, so at this time, in terms of residential, what the code already has, and for residential lot and building standards, a big part of that is our vehicular use area regulations that only allows for up to 40% of impermeable surface in the front yard. However, expanding on that would be a part of potential future code amendments in terms of requiring some form of regulation for the rear yards. However, that is not necessarily something that is a part of this amendment.
Yeah, and I suppose where I was headed, not so much with the yard, and which is, thank you for that clarification, but really more in a neighborhood. If you do a lot of infill, then you don't want developers just infilling it and then there's no green space for recreational, for children to go and play and so forth. So just trying to understand how that.
You're talking about like public green space or park.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, these units would be subject, if they're replatted, they would be subject to the park impact fee that we have. So they would still have to pay for that. And the area of the city that this would apply to most frequently tends to have quite a few park spaces and within walkable distance, because it's mainly the area south of the river. There are inside 435. So we do have a pretty good distribution, I would say, of parks that are already there, and this would just put more money towards those parks for improvements.
Okay, great, thanks.
Under this excuse me, under this proposal, what is the minimum distance between houses if you're building a new house?
It would be, I can pull that up again too. So for the side yard setback requirement, it would be 10% of the lot width or 50% of the average provided by all residential structures on the lots on the same block face.
So you really don't have a given amount of feet between houses, what you're saying?
Right, so we don't have a concrete number. For instance, if majority of the homes on a lot has a side yard setback of 8 feet, then the required
I'm
side.
talking on the sides. I'm not talking about the setbacks.
Are you,
This
what
is
are
the
you referring
houses.
to?
Say in a neighborhood like this, when you have a 25-foot lot front, you know, side by side 25-foot lot, what can you build? How far apart can this house be to the next one?
If you have
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question? You went out for a bit there.
Well, there's 25-foot lot, many 25-foot lots in my neighborhood.
Mhm.
Okay, if I want to build a new house on a 25-foot lot, what is the minimum? How far apart can I be from from the houses on either side?
If you have a 25-foot lot, this ordinance would require a 2.5-foot side yard setback on each side yard. That is consistent with all of our zoning districts.
Yeah, but that's when houses were built back in 100 years ago or more.
Well, I'm not quite done. Except it would be more than that if that's the pattern of development. If you have 25-foot lots on that same block face and the houses were set back, the other existing houses were set back 5 feet or 7 feet, then, and that was the average, then that would be what is required for the new house. It would be whichever one is greater. The other thing to keep in mind is that the building code in those cases of the lots that are narrower than 50 feet approximately, the building code is going to dictate placement because the building code requires a separation of 10 feet unless there's fire rated construction for the walls.
That's what I'm referring to, fire protection.
Right. So, you know, we have buildings all over the city that are built within 10 feet of each other. And when they are the newer buildings, when they're built within that range, they have to be fire rated.
Right.
To prevent the spread of fires. And the same.
Really, it's not advisable to build on a 25-foot lot, right?
It's what?
It's not advisable to build on a 25-foot lot.
Yeah, you
unless
can
you have a very, very narrow house.
You can, as long as you are providing the fire rated walls, if that's necessary, you can.
So again, back, you must, I guess, you know, you have to have at least, now 25-foot lots don't get it very good anymore. You know, you gotta have 2 lots.
So hopefully the lot and building standards for infill on those lots that are already existing that are 25 feet and may exist between 2 already existing homes. This would allow for them to do that in a manner that is fits into, again, lot and building standards for our zoning requirements, but at the end of the day, they still have to meet building code requirements. And so if they are unable to do so within the confines of those 2 sets of standards, then they can't build. But if they can do it in a way that is safe for the public and safe for those that reside in the home, they would be able to. And the goal of these development standards is to provide a way to do that that creates less barriers in the front part of the development process. I also see that we have members of the public raising their hands. I wasn't sure if we wanted to open up.
Yeah, I was just waiting until we got all the questions from the commission done. Looks like we are. So With that, let's go ahead and open it up for the public to speak. So if there's anybody out there that would like to speak regarding docket item number 9, please raise your hand and you'll be called upon.
I promoted Richard Hernandez, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah. Hi, Richard. If you can state your name and address for the record, that'd be great.
Yeah, Richard Hernandez, 2106 Holly, Kansas City, Missouri. The neighborhood and several neighborhoods fought this in 2019 because they wanted to build the homes closer on these 25-foot lots. And we did move it out. It's like 2'5". And that's about the minimum because these old foundations cannot take the brunt of the machinery. And that's why we did that. And that's why they moved it. The council agreed to leave it at 2.5 feet. But more on the amendment itself. In a fair and just system, we have checks and balances. This amendment would hurt neighborhoods. It would undermine current zoning standards, limit the influence of neighborhood groups, remove current standards for public notifications, testimony, and ground more authority and give more authority to the city planning department to approve developments without neighborhood acknowledgement. That's the underlining part of this. You can't see. There's a lot of written words in there that the average person can't see. We had to have lawyers look at this. So I'm against this. The West Side is against this. I know the Plaza area is against it. Got some building going on up there, and I've been informing them what they need to do and to call in. And there's some other neighborhoods. I hope they call in today besides me. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Hernandez, do you all intend to attend our virtual meeting on Thursday?
Not yet. I missed them, but I'm going to be watching. You said you were going to post the dates. I thought I
Right.
had, and I don't see it anymore. And I will be, we're pretty busy right now, but I will be getting you into a neighborhood meeting if you all want to come. Because we are very interested and we are very, we have a lot of lots like this, a lot of 25-foot lots. We cannot afford to have these foundations damaged. I took that up to the council in 2019. We had a house built right down the street here, and he did stay 2.5 feet, but I swear, I'm waiting for the day, and I hope it doesn't happen. He had like a 10-foot wall in the back, and then putting it that close to them houses. I don't know. I wish him well. I don't see it going well, doing it like that.
Okay, sir. So on Thursday of this week, April 21st at 6 p.m., we will be hosting an informational session where you all will be able to ask questions on behalf of your neighborhood for Volker, West Plaza, Westwood Park, Sacred Heart, West Side, Plaza Westport, West Side South, and West Side North for you all to attend. The Zoom link for this presentation is on the Chapter 88 City webpage. So if you need assistance with that, you can reach out to me. I'll make sure to put my information in the chat, and you all will be able to speak to us and ask us questions directly as it relates to any portion of this ordinance that you all are having troubles with.
This Thursday, the 29th. This Thursday, the 29th, right? No,
The 21st.
21st. I'm sorry, because there is a very important meeting on the 21st.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Yeah, I can't make that. How can I make that? We have our neighborhood meeting. It's real important. There were some stuff we're going through, so I'll have to attend another meeting or have you come to our neighborhood when we get a chance. We are very interested in this.
Same for the other meetings next Thursday and the Thursday. Well, the Thursday after that is Cinco de Mayo, but before that is May 28th. If you all want to attend the May 28th one as well, the focus will just be on different neighborhoods. Okay. But you'll still be able to get your questions answered and information about the ordinance.
And for clarification, Mr. Hernandez, the reason why your neighborhood is assigned to this Thursday is because someone from your team has volunteered for this Thursday. If that is inaccurate information, please let us know. But we were under the impression that people from your neighborhood were available to meet on Thursday, which is why you were assigned the Thursday date.
Yeah, not that Thursday. I'm not sure who did that. That's not from the West Side Neighborhood Association. We're the umbrella group of the whole area, so I'm not sure who did that, but it didn't come from us. We'll just try for the next meeting.
Okay, and I meant April 28th, next Thursday, not May 28th, just for clarification. April 28th is our next virtual meeting, and then the next one after that will be May 5th. And then again, we'll be coming before the City Plan Commission to speak on this. If you have any questions in between those times, if you're unable to make those meetings, I also have availabilities on the 20th, which is tomorrow, and you again can reach out to me directly and we can schedule a time to meet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else out there, Joe, that wants to speak from the public?
No one else is raising their hand.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public testimony for this time around, because we know it's going to come back again, and maybe there's something at that time. So anything else to discuss or present on this at this time from staff or questions from the commission? Okay, I don't see anything. We certainly appreciate you bringing it in. We know this is an important piece of, standards and rules here, but there's also a lot of concern about it. And hopefully we can get those things worked out. All right, is there anything else that needs to come before the City Planning Commission today?
That's it.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We will hold on, Ms. Max.
Did we continue this to a specific date?
Do we need to continue this? I thought it was just a presentation and didn't really need any.
We probably should. Yeah.
I mean, you're going to need to vote on it at some point. So we'll need to continue it, or else it would have to just be re-advertised.
Okay. And this also means we have an established quorum for this moving forward.
Text amendments are exempt from the established quorum rule. So it's those who aren't here could still participate.
Okay.
That's in your rules. Yeah.
Okay. So we need to continue this then for further discussion to what date?
I would recommend May 17th. Najma, does that get us past our neighborhood meetings?
Yes, sir. That's exactly what I would have recommended.
Okay. So I need a motion to continue docket item number 9 to May 17th.
I move to continue docket item number 9 to May 17th.
Second.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second to continue docket item number 9 to May 17th. Lisa, can you take roll call, please, on that motion?
Yes. Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker. Can't hear you. Okay, gotcha. Corral,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Rojas.
Aye.
Okay, so it looks like we're going to continue this case on May 17th then. Thank you for the presentation. All right, so if there's no more business before us, I'm assuming that we're going to adjourn the meeting. Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you.